Hey, what's up everybody, it's your boy Joker and welcome back to the channel. So today we're here with another video, and this time I'm not going to be doing like a news update. This is more like a discussion or maybe like a rant, something like a request type video. And this is something, a question that I believe not only myself but a lot of different fans of the Final Fantasy franchise and Square Enix different franchises have been asking. This brings the question to, when are we going to be getting the older Final Fantasy games ported to console? This is a question that I actually have been asking myself for like many years, because honestly on console we do have like Final Fantasy 7, you know, there's a Final Fantasy 7 remake, there's Final Fantasy 10, the 10-2 HD remaster, Final Fantasy 12, we have 14. But what about like 1 through 6? You know, what about the 13 series? You know, I know that a lot of people, you know, had like mixed reviews on Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, Lightning Returns, you know, but I mean, even if you may not regard it as one of the better Final Fantasies, I mean, the fact is still there that it's a Final Fantasy game. And that's the thing, I just feel like a lot of the good Final Fantasy games or the older games are just kind of inaccessible to some people. And I do know that these games are out on Steam and on PC, but not everyone has a PC, not everyone has the specs to, you know, run these games on PC. And quite literally, some people are just used to, like as myself, just like playing games like on their TV, just laying back, chilling at night, you know what I'm saying? Like just on your bed, chilling, trying to play some Final Fantasy games, man, and some Square Enix games. And that's the thing, it's more of like convenience, you know? So this, yeah, is definitely a question I've been asking for a lot of years. I know like back on the PlayStation Store and on the Xbox Store, these games were accessible, you know? They were like the Final Fantasy PS1 like classics. There were the PS1 games you could like download off the store, purchase, play, you know, whatever. You know, the games back then were like backwards compatible. But now that we're on the new generation PS5, even on PS4, these games weren't really accessible, you know what I'm saying? Now, I myself have been lucky, you know, I mean, I'm 27 years old. I've had, you know, the opportunity, and I consider myself lucky to have even played all the Final Fantasy games and beaten them up to date. But there are a lot of, you know, new people trying to, you know, get into Final Fantasy. Like, take my girlfriend, for example. She's trying to get into Final Fantasy. Me and her have been playing Final Fantasy 14 for like, I don't know, maybe about a month or so, you know. She's watched me play 7, the 7 remake. She watched me play Final Fantasy 9. She's kind of interested in playing these older Final Fantasy games. Yeah, dated they might be, but I mean, I just think that if you're looking to get into the franchise, a lot of people are going to look to start at, you know, the earlier titles, and I feel like it's kind of just like a dumb move to have them not accessible on console, because, you know, the majority of gamers do game on console. You know, I'm not trying to start a debate on which is better between console, PC. I'm not really trying to start a war or anything like that. I'm just saying the average consumer that's trying to play a Final Fantasy game is, you know, playing on console. As you know, like Final Fantasy started as a console game. So I just think we need to have more access to this. Now listen to this. Let's say we were to ask all the Final Fantasy fans that have been there from the beginning what their top 5 or favorite 5 Final Fantasy games are. I'm gonna be honest and quite literally say that a lot of people's favorite Final Fantasy games are the older games that aren't even accessible to, you know, most players on console. For example, my favorite Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy VI. I love that game. It's honestly probably my favorite game like ever created, or definitely up there, you know, in like the top like 3 games. Like, you know, it's a really good game. I love Final Fantasy VI. My brother's favorite Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy V. That game is also not available on console. So I do want to see these games make it to console and just be ported. Even if it's not a full-on HD or like remaster or remake, I just expect to at least have like a way to port the game over, you know what I'm saying? This is just something that I've been asking myself for years. I know you guys probably been asking the same thing. And this is just, man, like, I just can't believe that it's 2021, like it's 2021 and we don't have ports to the older Final Fantasy games. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's maybe a reason behind it, if it's like licensing or something. I mean, these are Square Enix games, you know, so I don't think it should be too hard to get that. Even if it's like maybe like outdated resources, you can't like find like, I guess like source files and stuff. I don't know what the technicalities are and stuff like that. But I mean, these ports exist on PC, on Steam. So this shouldn't really be hard to do. Like, I for one, I want to go back and play the older Final Fantasy games. As you guys know, I do stream a lot, you know, on Twitch and YouTube. I want to actually play the older Final Fantasy games, and that's one of the things I'm talking about. I mean, like, it's not only good for the fans, they're making money, but it's also good promotion to just get people into the Final Fantasy franchise, you know what I'm saying? Now, could there be like a reason these games aren't being ported over to PlayStation and Xbox? I mean, could there be like remakes like incoming? That'd be pretty cool if we were to get like remakes of Final Fantasy 1 through 6. I'd be definitely down for that. Like, be honest here, for all of you Final Fantasy fans, wouldn't you guys like to see a remake or at least like an HD remaster of these older Final Fantasy games? Here, how about this? I'll even go ahead and, you know, just discuss the older Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy 1, very revolutionary game, honestly quite legendary. It followed this, you know, the story of the 4 warriors of light and their battle to, you know, save the world from darkness. The villain Garland, very memorable. You know, I remember the 4 fiends, you know, in that game. Really great game. Final Fantasy 2 was the story of Firion, how they were saving the world against the evil emperor Matthias. That was a really good game as well. Final Fantasy 3 followed the story of the Onion Knights in the Warrior of Lights on their tale to defeat the Cloud of Darkness and save the world. If you played the DS re-release, the main character Lunith, one of the Onion Knights or warriors, fought to defeat Cloud of Darkness. Final Fantasy 4, one of my favorites as well. That was the story of Cecil on his tale to save the world against Golbez. And it even went to like outer space because, you know, they were on the moon. I don't want to spoil too much of the game, but I mean, also the game is over 20 years old, so there isn't really much to spoil here. But I'm just saying, really good games. Final Fantasy V was the story of Bart, you know, and the group on their journey to defeat Exdeath. Final Fantasy VI, regarded as literally one of the best games ever made, was the story of Terra, Kefka, amazing villain, amazing character design, everything was just so great. I remember the Phantom Train on that. I remember Kefka literally going ham, literally ruling the world. He was literally the first villain in the Final Fantasy franchise to actually succeed in taking over the world. So that was a huge plot twist. Very good game, and I'm just so surprised that I haven't seen this ported over to console yet. And here's the thing, like, it really was ported over to console years ago, but as far as accessing it on the PS4 and the PS5 and, you know, Xbox 360, Series X, all that, I just want to see a port. Like, it's just so much more convenient being able to play these on your consoles. Now, let's not only talk about Final Fantasy, but here's some other great honorable mentions that I would like to see ported over to, you know, console. What about Vagrant Story? What about Chrono Trigger? What about Chrono Cross? You know what I'm saying? What about like Parasite Eve, Parasite Eve 2? All these great games that like literally a lot of people grew up with just loving these games, and they're just inaccessible. I mean, not a lot of people have a PS1, you know, to play these games. And like, it's just, I don't know, I just find it super inconvenient that we can't play these great games. But anyway, like, that's the end of my rant. Definitely let me guys know if you guys want, you know, to see these games ported over to console as well, all you console gamers out there. This is definitely something I want. It's something my girlfriend wants, my brother, literally almost everyone I know kind of wants this to be a thing, want it to happen. Definitely, like, if I could even somehow start a petition for Square Enix to just notice this and just get this video noticed, man. So definitely share this video to your family, friends, everyone like that. You know, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Definitely hit that like button like a mama taught you right. You know, share the video out. Follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good jazz as well. I actually do have a TikTok and Discord server. I'll put the links to that down in the description below. And make sure to hit that bell notification icon. That way you guys will be notified whenever I put new videos out and stuff like that as well. And definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know what your favorite Final Fantasy game is, or Square Enix game is, down in the comment section as well. I will see you all later. I hope you guys have a great day, and this is Joker out. Stay strong, my Phantom Peeps. Peace.